there, and welcome to Sheeran Guitar Tutorials. My name's David, and in today's lesson, I'll be teaching you how Ed Sheeran plays opening during his live performances. Now, keep in mind, this recording is after only one live performance of the song, so if I learn anything new after recording this, I'll add the updates to the description of this video. So check down there if something in this video seems off, and if I don't have what you're thinking, leave me a comment letting me know. So all that out of the way, you'll need your guitar in standard tuning and a capo on the 6th fret. Let's jump on in. So first up is the chords, and we're starting with a funny kind of a C add 9, which is played like this. Now this may seem weird, but it's what I see Ed playing at parts of the song during his first live performance. If you wanted to though, a normal C add 9 chord would be perfectly fine. So from there, you also have a C sus2, a D sus4, an E minor 7, a G5, and then what I'm calling a G5 prime. Which again seems odd, but it's what I see Ed playing in the first live performance of this song. If you wanted to though, you could just skip this chord and just keep to the normal G5. So on to strumming now. The first pattern is what you'll need for the choruses during the rapping part of the song, and that would sound like this. You'll notice I have some strums bolded, and that's to give the song the rhythm that you're looking for. So without the bolds, strumming pattern 1 would just sound like this. But with the bolds, it sounds like this. So you want to try and include those emphasized strums if you can. So after that pattern, I have an optional pattern listed as well for the verses during the rapping part of the song, and that would just sound like this. Now this is optional because Ed didn't actually play any guitar during this part of the song when he first played it. I just threw this in here as an option to give you something to do during the verses of the rap part of the song. But feel free to get creative and try other things. Okay, so moving on to the song now. Up front, I just want to say that the structure of the song seems a little odd, and the music theory doesn't really seem to add up, at least to me, the way it usually does. And it's a little hard to know what to label each part of the song, so just bear with me here when I walk through this. And hey, maybe this is just me. I know nothing about music theory or song structure, so maybe I'm missing something. Just wanted to throw that out there. So starting with what I'm calling the intro to the song, this is during the beginning half of the song where Ed is actually playing the guitar. So you're just placing your middle finger on the 3rd fret of the low E string and plucking the pattern I have shown twice. And just a note, all the frets shown here or any other tabs in this video are all relative to the capo. So just to play what I have shown on the screen really slowly, it would sound like this. And a little faster, the intro would sound like this. So moving on now, we're at what I'm calling part 1 of verse 1 of the beginning of the song where there's no rapping. And you're just playing the same plucking pattern we just went over, but you're going to play it 12 more times. And that's it. Very simple. So all of part 1 of verse 1 of the beginning of the song would sound like this. So on to part 2 of verse 1 of the beginning of the song now. The plucking pattern changes just a little bit. You start by removing your finger from the low E string, and then you pluck the low E string followed by the G string twice. So that would just sound like this. Now you'll notice though, throughout this whole part of the song, I have a 3 on the B string along with an asterisk saying that you could optionally pluck that string as well. That's because in the video of Ed playing this song, he puts his ring finger there, but for the life of me, it does not look like he's actually plucking that string. So it's shown as optional because maybe he does in fact pluck the B string and I'm just missing it. Either way though, the song still sounds good. So if you don't include the B string, that very first part just sounds like this. But if you do include the B string, the first part sounds like this. And Like I said, sounds good either way. So include the pluck of the B string wherever you see it in this tutorial if you want, but I probably won't be using it moving forward. So moving on now, you would then place your index finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, and then you're plucking the D string with your thumb, followed by the G string twice, which would sound like this. So all of section 1 of this part of the song would sound like this. And a little bit faster. So on to part 2 now. You're placing your index finger on the 2nd fret of the A string and plucking the A string followed by the G string 4 times. That would sound like this. Section 3 is placing your middle finger on the 3rd fret of the A string now and plucking the same pattern we did for section 2, and so that would sound like this. And then part 4 goes back to putting your middle finger on the 3rd fret of the low E string and plucking the low E string and the G string 4 times. So that would sound like this. So all of part 2 of verse 1 from the beginning of the song would sound like this. So moving on now, we're at break 1, and you're just playing the main plucking pattern using the low E and the G string. You're playing that 1 time through. So that just sounds like this. And that's it, very simple. So now we're into part 1 of verse 2 from the beginning of the song, and it's played the exact same way as part 1 of verse 1. But this time, you're playing the plucking pattern 9.5 times instead of 12. And yes, trust me, I know that sounds wrong, but I've counted this over and over and over again using the video of Ed playing it live, and always end up at 9.5 times. But again, maybe I'm still counting wrong, who knows? Regardless, basically, you just play the whole pattern 9 times, and then only half of it on your 10th time through, before moving on to part 2 of verse 2. So just to play it, all of part 1 of verse 2 of the beginning of the song would sound like this. So now we're at part 2 of verse 2 from the beginning of the song, and it's the same thing as part 2 of verse 1 of the beginning of the song, so refer back to that section for the details. After part 2 of verse 2 of the beginning of the song, you would be at break 2, which again is the exact same thing as break 1. You're just playing our main plucking pattern 1 time through. That's it, nice and easy. So moving on now to part 1 of verse 3 from the beginning of the song, and the plucking changes a little bit again. You start with your index finger on the 2nd fret of the A string, and you pluck that and then the G string 4 times together. That would sound like this. Section 2, you put your middle finger on the 3rd fret of the A string and pluck the A string and the G string 4 times together. Section 3 is back to our main plucking pattern, where you're placing your middle finger on the 3rd fret of the low E string and then plucking that along with the G string 4 times. And then you finish by placing your index finger on the 2nd fret of the G string and then plucking the D string and then the G string 4 times together. So all 4 sections of part 1 of verse 3 would sound like this. You would then pluck this whole thing 2 more times for a total of 3 times. So all of part 1 of verse 3 would sound like this. So on to part 2 of verse 3 from the beginning of the song. And it's pretty similar to part 1 of verse 3, but you're just repeating section 3 here 1 more time. So this whole part would sound like this. And then you kind of want to let that last note that you pluck on the G string ring out just a little bit, because then you're transitioning into the rapping part of the song. All right, so we finished the beginning part of the song playing the acoustic guitar. Sounds very nice. Now we're moving into the rapping part of the song. And so between the two parts of the song, there's sort of a brief pause as the song transitions. And if you've watched the video of Ed playing it in his first live performance, he's not actually playing any guitar here, so technically you don't have to play anything. But what I have shown on the screen is just something that you could play if you really wanted to. So you could play this, you could palm mute this and play it, you could continue plucking, alternating between the two chords shown. It's really up to you. This is just one option. So if you're following me, I'm calling this verse 1 of the rapping part of the song just for reference. And it's really simple. You're just alternating between the E minor chord and the C sus2 chord using strumming pattern 2 that we went over before. So the E minor 7 would sound like this. And the C sus2 would sound like this. And you just play the pair of those chords 9 times in total. So just to play this part 3 times through to give you an idea on how it would sound like this. So then you move on to what I'm calling chorus 1 of the rapping part of the song, and Ed actually is playing guitar here, so you definitely want to learn this part. You start on the C add 9 chord and play most of strumming pattern 1, and then transition to the D sus4 chord to finish strumming pattern 1. So all of that first part would sound like this. Then you do the same thing for the E minor 7 and the G5 prime chords. So one time through, everything would sound like this. You would then repeat all of that one more time to complete the chorus. So the entirety of the chorus would sound like this. From there, you have verse 2 of the rapping part of the song, and it's the exact same as verse 1 of the rapping part. So refer back to that section for the details. Then finally, you have chorus 2 of the rapping part of the song, and it's very similar to chorus 1 of the rapping part of the song. First two differences are the C chords are now the C sus2 instead of the C add 9, and the G chord is now the full G5 instead of the G5 prime. From there, the only other difference of chorus 2 of the rapping part of the song compared to chorus 1 of the rapping part of the song is you play the chord progression in full 1 additional time, so 3 times in total. And then on the 4th time through the chord progression, you finish the song with 1 final down strum on the E minor 7. So refer back to chorus 1 of the rapping part of the song for the details there, but to play all of chorus 2 of the rapping part of the song, it would sound like this. The last note I'll say here is in the video of Ed playing this song, he's strumming really quickly on that last E minor 7 to end it, so feel free to do that if you want to. And so that's the entirety of the song. So what I'll do now is do a full playthrough to give you something to practice and play along to. Enjoy. And so that's the entirety of the lesson. If you want more tutorials covering songs from Play, be sure to click the card on the screen now to jump to all my other Ed Sheeran lessons. And be on the lookout for many more Play tutorials to come in the very near future. Thank you.